Is it really so much to ask to get at least a little bit of time to enjoy a third period goal before the other team scores? What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Kraken are able to hang in there against a good Calgary Flames team, but still fall in somewhat frustrating fashion 6-4. Now, it is worth mentioning that for the Kraken, this was the second half of a back-to-back, having played the night before. Meanwhile, for the Flames, this was their first game in almost 3 weeks, as they had gone 19 days since they were shut down early with their COVID outbreak. So I think it's safe to say that one of these two teams probably did have a little bit more energy coming into this game. And again, the Flames are a good team, especially on the road so far this season. So it's not like I'm surprised or necessarily frustrated that the Kraken lost. It's more how they end up losing, and especially how the third period ends up finishing. Oh, and the Kraken were also without Jaden Schwartz in this one, who got a little bit banged up in last night's game, so yeah, that didn't help things either. Getting into the game itself, at least out of the gates, the Kraken have plenty of energy even after last night's game, and have a very good sequence of chances about 2 minutes in that do have a couple of near-miss goal chances for Geekie that he just can't quite get a stick on, one of which off a rebound from Borgen, and then shortly after that, a crossing pass from Susie. Again, Geekie can't quite get to, and Eberle just misses the net with a shot himself on the other side of Geekie. So Markstrom and the Flames do dodge a couple of early bullets, but shortly after that, McCann draws a penalty and Seattle is onto the power play. And for Seattle, this was a very good looking power play, as they did just about everything right, except for putting the puck into the net, as they get plenty of chances on goal, but just can't quite get one past Markstrom, and the Flames do survive this first power play from Seattle. The Flames are not out of the woods just yet, though, as just a couple minutes after the failed power play for the Kraken, they're back into the Calgary end in the offensive zone, with the puck dumped into the corner that Järnkrok is able to get to, thanks to a good forecheck from Gord, and he shovels it out in front of the net. Blackwell fans on it, but it goes through Blackwell to a wide open Mark Giordano, and he buries it against his old team to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead. And of course, it had to be the longtime Flame and longtime Flame captain, now Kraken captain, that broke the ice in this one. He doesn't always score goals, but when he does, it comes in meaningful games. Following the Gio goal in his first revenge game against his old team, with the Kraken now up 1-0, play is back and forth for a little bit longer, though the Flames do start to take control and get some sustained pressure at the Kraken end of the ice and get a number of chances off on net of their own. Seattle is able to survive the first wave, but the Flames regroup and come back into the Kraken end of the ice in the offensive zone, and it's Nikita Zadorov attracting all of the defensive attention that the Kraken have to offer, including a little bit too much attention from Drieger, who's expecting Zadorov to take the wide open shot. Instead, he passes out to the side to Gaudreau, who is also wide open, somewhat forgotten by the defense, and he has a pretty easy target to hit as Drieger's a little too far out of the net, again preparing for a Zadorov shot, and Gaudreau hits what's basically an empty net. It is a bit of a defensive breakdown by the Kraken, and you could definitely make the argument that they played this one a little too soft, but Drieger was way out of position on this one, and I think it falls on him ultimately. And then, to make matters worse for himself, shortly after the goal is scored, he goes behind the net to play a puck, but ends up putting it into the netting above the glass, causing a delay of game penalty, and the Flames get their first power play of the game. Fortunately, the Kraken penalty kill does its job successfully, and even is able to use that to kind of even out play a little bit more, as it is pretty back and forth for the remainder of the first period, right up until, with less than 2 minutes left, the Kraken get another power play to close things out. Though it has to be said, this Kraken power play is not particularly well organized and looks almost exactly the opposite of the power play we saw at the start of the period. And so we get to the first intermission, still tied at 1. Thanks though to their ability to actually hold on to the puck for quite a while on the delayed penalty before that penalty at the end of the period, the Kraken still have a few seconds left of the power play to start out the second. And, well, usually in this type of situation, with just a few minutes left of power play to start out a period, it rarely ends up going much of anywhere. This time for the Kraken, they make it count. It takes them all of 9 seconds into the period to win the faceoff, have Gio carry the puck into the offensive zone, pass it across Markstrom's face to McCann, who shoots. Markstrom does make a nice save, but the rebound goes right out in front of the net, where Järnkrok is able to skate in, get a stick on it, and put it into the net to give the Kraken the power play goal and the 2-1 lead. And for the Kraken, it is a franchise record for fastest goal scored at the start of a period, breaking the previous record of 15 seconds that they set in the first period of that game in Arizona that we still just don't really talk about. The Flames do try to respond quickly with a couple of pretty good chances to do so, but at least for now, Driedger is up to the task. And then, a few minutes into the period, the game continues to get chippy between these two teams, which, given their reputations, is not a huge surprise, even if this is the first time that they've faced so far this season. This time, though, it's McCormick who ends up in the box for the Kraken, and the Flames get their second power play of the game. And this time, the Flames power play would not be denied, as it doesn't take them very long at all to get Gaudreau a chance to pick his spot, and he is able to put it top corner above Driedger's shoulder and into the net for the power play goal and to tie up the game at 2. Then, shortly off the ensuing faceoff, this time it's Seattle trying to respond quickly to a Calgary goal as McCann gets on a breakaway, can't quite get a clean handle on a bouncing puck, still is able to beat Markstrom, but puts it off the post and it stays out. Then a couple minutes later, it's McCann again, this time with a wide open shot from the slot. It's on goal, but saved as we stay 2-2 and play evens out and pretty back and forth through the middle of this period, and also through a period of 4-on-4 as Borgen and Lucic trades penalties, with this game continuing to be pretty physical between these two teams, both before and after whistles. Unfortunately, even with chances at both ends of the ice, it's the Flames and Lucic who find their way onto the scoreboard next, as they are able to take advantage late in the period of a disorganized Kraken defense, and Lucic is able to find the top corner over Driedger's other shoulder this time to give the Flames their first lead of the game. It's 3-2. And then, to make matters worse, for the second time in the game, shortly after a Calgary goal, they go onto the power play now in the closing minutes of the second period. The Kraken are able to do a good job of killing off the first half of the Calgary power play, though this is definitely not something they want to be making a habit of doing. And then, to make things even more worse for themselves, which I'm not sure more worse is particularly good English, but this isn't particularly good hockey on the part of Seattle, as they now get caught for another penalty and give the Flames 53 seconds of 5-on-3 hockey. And I don't care who you're playing, you don't want to be giving any teams a chance 5-on-3, much less a team that's playing as well as the Flames have been to this point in the season, especially offensively. But by some miracle, the Kraken are not only able to kill off the 53 seconds of 5-on-3, but also the remaining minute and 7 seconds of that second penalty to keep this game just a 1-goal deficit going into the second intermission, as it is still 3-2 after 2. Starting off the third period through the early part of the period, the Flames were doing a very good job with an aggressive forecheck that, while it wasn't creating a whole lot of offensive opportunities for them, it was very effective in shutting down any kind of offensive opportunities that the Kraken tried to get going the other way, really completely preventing the Kraken from getting any kind of control of the puck through the neutral zone, much less having any kind of control in the offensive zone against the Flames. It is a type of playstyle that Kraken fans should be all too familiar with, as it's something that the Kraken, even effectively sometimes, have done throughout the course of the first half of the season themselves. And it was also brought to an end by something that we have unfortunately also seen happen against the Kraken all too often throughout the first half of this season, as even though the Flames had pretty much kept the Kraken entirely out of their end of the ice for the first 5 minutes of the third period, sometimes all it takes is that one odd man rush chance going the other way for the other team to make that first chance of the period count, and for the Kraken, that's just what happens as Järnkrok gets the puck past most of the Calgary defense, pulls up as he enters the offensive zone, fires a pass along the blue line to Blackwell, who intentionally shoots the puck wide of the net, because crashing on the far side of it into the back door is Yanni Gourde, who banks the puck off of his stick and into the net past Markstrom to tie this game up at 3, as the Kraken, in spite of being on their heels at the early outset of this period, are able to make things interesting. Following the game-tying goal for Seattle off the stick of Gourde, the Flames are a little bit less content with just keeping the puck in Seattle's end of the ice, and actually start to get some shots off on net as they regain momentum of the game, at least for a few minutes. Fortunately, defensively, Seattle is able to survive this, also thanks to some good saves by Driedger. And eventually, after Seattle gets some chances of their own at the other end, play does start to even out, and it seems like we're headed to an inevitable second overtime game in 2 nights for Seattle, right up until the Flames, with 5 minutes left in the game, get another chance on the power play. And although, once again, the Kraken penalty kill does do a good job of killing off the first half of this penalty, eventually, Mangiapane does find the back of the net off of a rebound that goes right out in front, and the Flames regain the lead late in the third. It's now 4-3. Right off the faceoff, Seattle's able to get control and quickly get set up in the offensive zone, looking eager to get this game back tied up and maybe get to that overtime that we thought might be coming a couple of minutes ago. And then Gio takes a shot, it banks off a stick in front, and it's in! It's McCann with the incredible hand-eye coordination, or maybe stick-eye coordination. Either way, it goes through a geeky screen in front of the net and into the back of the net to tie this game up just 30 seconds after the Flames took the lead on that power play goal. And as far as McCann is concerned, get this man an extension now. And man, were us Kraken fans feeling good about this one for about that long. 13 seconds. It took 13 seconds off the ensuing faceoff right after the Kraken tie the game late in the third period, answering a Calgary goal of their own, for Calgary to get the puck right back into the back of the Kraken net and take the lead right back from Seattle. It's Matthew Tkachuk with the goal, but it hardly even matters who it is, as he just puts it right through the 5-hole of Driedger, as this is a very soft goal that he absolutely has to come up with a save on. But I'm also not going to bail out the rest of the team on this one, because as I would like to say that this was a once in a rare while thing for the Kraken, I think all of us Kraken fans can pretty vividly remember the last time that this happened, because it happened almost exactly 24 hours ago in the third period of last night's game. The only difference being that this time it takes 2 fewer seconds for the puck to end up in the back of the net after the Kraken goal, and this time, instead of tying the game, it gives the Flames the late lead, which, of course, they do end up hanging on to. And although the Kraken end up pulling Driedger with 2 minutes left to try and tie the game, eventually the Flames find the back of the empty net to finish this game off at 6-4. I mean, I wish I had an answer. I wish I could say there's some easy fix for how the Kraken prevent this from happening. And these 2 instances in the last couple of games are not the first time this has happened to them. But again, it's a soft goal that Driedger lets up, but still, you shouldn't be allowing a shot on goal in the first place in the first 13 seconds. Still though, it's a soft goal and you need to have that saved from your goaltender regardless of who it is. And that's something that the Kraken really just have not been getting very much of to this point in the season. I know I've defended the goaltenders more than a lot of people have been willing to, and I don't take that back, but it still is very much on them as much as it has been on the defense to this point in the season. And on this one, it's Driedger that lets the Kraken down. I mean, again, really shouldn't even be allowing a shot at 13 seconds, so I guess it is somewhat on the defense, but So again, like I said in the beginning, the Flames are a good team, and the Kraken did hang in there against them in spite of giving up 40 shots on goal to just 22 going the other way. They had a pretty good amount of offense and were able to beat a good goaltender in Markstrom a number of times. Unfortunately, this game just ends in incredibly frustrating fashion, which kind of puts a sour note on all of that the Kraken were able to do through the first 50-ish minutes of the game. Actually, like 55 plus. I got a question on Twitter after the game, which if you do want to send me questions there after or even during games, I can try to include those towards the end of some of these videos, so feel free to do that. But it was asking whether or not I thought Hakstol was on a hot seat or warm seat at this point in the season. And honestly, I don't think he's going to be even on a warm seat by the end of the season, regardless of how the rest of it goes. The fact of the matter is he's still a coach of an expansion team, again, obviously in their first season, so he's going to be given a lot more leash than most coaches would be in most situations. And I don't think that all of the Kraken's issues have been coaching related either. Still, the defensive strategy and system that Hakstol's put in place clearly is at least not working consistently enough for them to this point. There are definitely games where it works very well, and when it does, the Kraken look like a very hard team to score against, and even in games where they do let up goals, there are some of them where they really are not allowing a lot of shots on goal, and it's just goaltending that ends up letting them down. Still though, it's not a particularly good look when your team built around defense and a defensive head coach whose main troubles outside of goaltending have been defensive breakdowns and inconsistent defensive play in front of that goaltending through the first half of the season. And for that is something that Hakstol has to be able to answer for. Regardless, Ron Francis as a GM is anything but a rash decision maker, and I think that's pretty much what it would take for them to pull the plug on Hakstol within the first season of the franchise. So, at the very least, even if things continue to go poorly through this season, I think he'll be at least given the first quarter to half of next season before we can start talking about him being on the hot seat. And if that makes you concerned about the future of this team, and then potentially being like a Buffalo or Arizona who's almost never in the playoffs and go on long playoff droughts, I will say that usually in the NHL, teams that go on long playoff droughts like those teams have, tend to have their problems traced back to either terrible or neglectful ownership, which is certainly not an issue that the Kraken have. So I wouldn't be too worried about that, and still, we're not even at the halfway point of the first season, so let's not worry too much about where things are going to be 5-10 years down the road just yet. As for this current season though, yeah, at this point it would take a pretty miraculous run for the Kraken in the back half of the season for them to get close to making the playoffs. It's still not impossible. The Blues did do pretty much what the Kraken would have to do at this point in order to make the playoffs just a couple of years ago in 2019 on their way to winning their Stanley Cup. But there is also a reason that their story that year stands out in the over 100-year history of the NHL, and that's because it really does not happen very often, if pretty much at all outside of them a couple years ago. Now, on the positive end, I will at least say that even with the Kraken having one of the worst records in the league, and even if they are destined to keep that up through the end of the season, they have, at least to this point, made the vast majority of their games interesting and fun to watch, even if the majority of them have been losses. And that's something that you definitely cannot say about many of the teams around where the Kraken are at in the lower part of the league with their overall record. And finally, before I close things out, it would be irresponsible of me not to mention the game that Mark Giordano had in this one, his first one again against his old team. It does end up getting a little bit lost in the frustrating way this game ends, but he had a fantastic game with a goal and 2 assists, even earning him the first star in this one, as he has, I would say, easily one of the best games, if not maybe even the best game of his career as a Kraken so far, which again has just been this season, obviously. But with that, it will do it for this one. So if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that help the channel, so I'd appreciate you using them. And as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down below. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and go Kraken.